hot mics. Good morning, everybody. I had to let people know. Good morning. Let people kind of filter in, and as people realize that it is in fact Sunday morning, 10:01. Oh my God, I'm late. In the voice chat right now we have J-Rod, the amateur blacksmith, and Shamrock Forge. What up, guys? Oh, I am sore. So, what's up, Shane, Trail Dust, Robert, Speargrass? Good evening. So we got a cool topic today. Kind of a I phrased it pretty cool there, Sully, earlier. Kind of like a pre-promo kind of soft launch of a new idea that Sully had. And it was my idea to do the soft launch because, and we'll get into that here in a sec. But yeah. Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Cheryl. Oh, my sinuses already. Oh, wait. Yeah, they can't. There we go. Now they can hear you guys. Okay. So, sorry, I clicked the wrong unmute. I clicked the wrong unmute because it shifted its position in my controls. Okay, so we have J-Rod, Shamrock, now officially on the mics. Something is wrong with the audio. Still? Now it must have... Yeah, that's right. Wicked echo. Whoa. Hold on, guys.
And we're holding.
The LifeCam mic is picking up some craziness. I'm watching the feed for it, and it's like it's picking up like everything, like the motor ticking for the timer for my lizard lamps. Like, what the heck is going on?
Dang it. Come on. There's that.
Let me check that, and then I'll kind of redo all our, let me see. Alright. Is this better, guys?
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
I'm literally watching my microphone. I mean, okay, we're good for now. That was weird. It was like needled out, bottomed out in the red, like not bottomed out, but topped out in the red on the mic. That was really weird. All right, sorry about that, everybody. Robert Whitney, how you doing? John Burnell, Wayne Heights, Possum Sausage, Chaz Walker, and yeah, still a bit funky. You know, one of these days I'm gonna get. I mean, this is my microphone. You know, one of these days I'm gonna get like a legit actual mic, and it should be good. But right, Adam, right? Okay, as I was saying though, apparently not only could they not hear you guys, Sully, but they couldn't hear me either. So Sully had a great idea to add to the show, and we're going to be doing it. But we're doing kind of a soft open or soft. Man, I can't remember these words.
It's a soft launch.
Thank you. Soft launch of the idea is going to be the topic today, and we're going to kind of go over it a little bit. So to the topic. Well, okay, let's do it this way. Sully, how about you kind of give just a elevator pitch of what we're going to be
All right. So the idea was, yeah, I got it. So the idea was that instead of this just being an hour of random conversation that has very little substance, I thought, well, what about if we went a little bit more responsible, I guess, and had some segments or something, or like a recurring weekly theme that we could do. That, anyways. So what I thought was perhaps we do a segment once a week called Metal of the Week, where we take a certain type, a certain alloy, or a certain metal, and during the week, do a fair bit of research and whatnot on it, and then just switch it around back and forth, and each week feature a different metal or a different alloy, and its different properties and uses, and all the discussion that can go around that.
Right.
And then this week I worked so darn much I did not have time to prepare the segment, so we're going to wing it today.
Yeah, well, today, like I was saying, the soft launch of it, for example, a metal of the week, say AR-33, where we would talk about its origins, what we can determine about its composition, which isn't much because it's kind of proprietary blend of herbs and spices. But we talk about its uses, its forgeability, things like that, and all of that. But my idea for today's soft launch of that idea is wrought iron, because you can't get a spec sheet on wrought iron. Each piece of wrought iron throughout history was a little bit different, so it is such a broad metal that you can take up an entire show to discuss it, and so I want to talk about wrought iron today. A little bit of its history, and it's a fun one because everybody, when you talk to a blacksmith about about wrought iron, they know what you're talking about. But if you were to go to your next door neighbor or one of your customers and be like, it's like, I got this wrought iron, they'd be like, I got a wrought iron fence outside my house. It's like, no, you don't. You got a mild steel. You got a mild steel, or aluminum, fence around your house. Or
you got it at Lowe's and it's actually cast iron.
Yeah, or it's cast iron, and it's like, so it's a fun topic because you can have, wrought iron that you pick up, hiccups, that you pick up from somebody, and either it etches, you forge something out of it and toss it in some acid to clean it up, and it etches like this beautiful, like, heavy wood grain texture. Or you could do it and it's like it's almost like you're etching mild steel. You can see a little bit of the grain, but like it's not, this isn't wrought. Yes, it is, because different applications of wrought iron have, they work it more. Everything is wrought iron to a non-blacksmith, right? Keep it hotter, it splits. Absolutely. I mean, I've had some wrought iron. Sully has actually had some of this wrought iron too, where like you look at it and it starts to split.
Yeah, and and that's something we were discussing in the pre-show. It's just that those particular qualities. I mean, yes, those there were like 5/8 or 3/4 inch bridge bolts that were wrought iron, and you could, I don't care how hot you got it. I mean, you could forge weld it together and all that, but if you went to punch it, you were splitting it in half. I mean, it would not. It was the darndest thing. I mean, and even if you tried to work it into a point, if you like tried to pull one end down into a taper, the taper would just start fraying out. The tip would. I mean, it was really really frustrating. And then that piece of bridge or not bridge, that piece of rail track rock that I had, that stuff just worked right down into a 1/2 inch square bar like nobody's business.
Yeah. Like Possum's saying, he had wrought iron so fine that all you could see in the grain was little black flecks, extremely pure. Yeah.
Well, see this rail track that we had. One person says it's not wrought, one person says it is wrought. Well, I took a piece of the track, maybe about a 4-inch piece. I cut off of it, and then I cut just the top rail off. I left the bottom part. And then I worked that thing down all the way down into a 1/2 inch square bar on the power hammer up there in Ohio, and stuck it in some ferric chloride and let it wait about 30 minutes. Pulled it out, and sure enough, there was grain structure to it. And it's like, I mean, it etched pretty darn good too. And I was like, wow, I didn't expect that, because prior to that, just like cutting a slice off of the rail track and trying to etch it, it wouldn't etch. And so I really didn't expect much, but to have as great of a pattern as it did after I worked it down was quite fascinating, really.
Yeah, it's wrought is some fun stuff, and you see. Yes, Robert, I did pick up some wrought. Actually, Sully, I still have to cut a slice or cut a chunk off and take the swedge block piece and fit it all together into a flat rate box for you.
Yeah. Whenever you get that done, let me know, and I'll zip you the ship.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I haven't played with that yet. I've been staring at it. I want to make more bottle openers. I love wrought iron bottle openers. I just think they look so cool. Didn't they used to have a grading system, single, double, triple refined? That would be something interesting to know. That's why I chose to do this as a soft launch for Metal of the Week, is because there's so much information about, like the old ways of, wrought iron. It was a chapter in blacksmith's history and metal working history, and it's something that we don't use anymore except for an artisanal application. I do have a wrought iron Mawabo, yes. But okay, decades ago I worked at Johnson Wrought Iron, an ornamental shop. I've heard it called wrought iron, wrought iron, rawed iron. We worked with mild steel. Yeah, like it's a, to some people it's a buzzword. To blacksmiths, it's a product. So it's like, if you were to advertise something as wrought iron, and it's truly wrought iron, the customer would be like, oh okay, they wouldn't. To them, wrought iron is the fence outside their house, or it's the trellis that they have, on their front porch, or the decoration that they have in their door, even if it's mild steel welded together, made in China, So it's like,
point you make, is in the sense that it's not only a steel type or a metal type that we use, but to the general public, it's a design type. It's a style. Yes.
So that's why, personally, if somebody comes and asks me for, good example. If you guys remember a while back, I did those barricade brackets for a door, and the customer's like, I want some wrought iron, barricade brackets for my doors. And I'm like, I've got some wagon wheel. And he goes, well, is that strong? And I'm like, it's wrought. And he goes, well, I just need some metal brackets. He didn't want wrought iron. He wanted the wrought, that classic look. And it's like, so I had to explain to him the difference and how the price difference of getting actual wrought iron compared to just some mild steel bent to shape, And he was like, "Oh no, just I just want the look. It doesn't need to be, historically accurate, And so yeah, if I'm working with wrought, I'm working with wrought so that I can etch it and show a pattern, a wood grain pattern. I'm not wasting wrought iron on something that's going to be, clean forged and painted or waxed or finished, because that would just.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you're not etching it, is there really a point?
No, I mean, unless you're doing something period correct, unless you're doing something period correct where a customer wants wrought iron and they want wrought iron.
Right.
Wrought iron
yeah,
gate.
Like for instance, a wrought iron hammer with welded-on tool steel faces.
Well, no, more so okay, so if a customer knows the difference between wrought iron and mild steel, and they want a gate made, but they want it to be actual historical wrought iron, and are willing to pay that, I wouldn't etch the gate. I would. Not that I make gates, but in that case, they know what they want. They want something historically accurate,
But see, in that respect, you could still just make that out of mild steel, and there's no way to know unless you cut a chunk off it,
And they wouldn't know the difference unless you told them.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, if somebody were to come up to me and be like, say I was a gate maker, or a fence maker, or whatever they're called, blacksmiths. and they were to say, no, I know the difference between mild steel and wrought. I know that modern gates are made with mild steel, but I really would like to tell people that this is a wrought iron gate, and they're willing to pay premium price for it. I would source, somehow wrought iron and quote them the price. And if they're willing to pay it, I would make the gate out of wrought iron so that they are getting what they pay for,
Right. See, talking about many, all those things being, that are called wrought, like guardrails, gates, etc.
Yes.
They're actually, in today's day and age, they're mild steel, but they're still called wrought because they resemble the items that were traditionally handworked by a blacksmith, back in the day, and yeah, and so it's really to a blacksmith, it's a type of metal, and to anyone else, it's a look. It's a decoration, or you know what I mean. Which
is why when somebody requests a wrought iron item, you explain to them that do you want wrought iron, or are you looking for the aesthetic? Because here's the different prices.
It's very important, but knowing the difference, like you were saying there, is particularly for here in Australia, we get sometimes we get places that are like station or cattle ranch homesteads and stuff like that, which are being restored because they're actually historic. So having that historic accuracy and making them out of wrought isn't just it's a price difference. It's an actual requirement for the restoring of that historical place, church, stuff like that. So that price, of course, that price difference, if you're selling stuff like that, is going to make a difference. But in situations like that, knowing those differences and being able to work them and to make them historically accurate to period is actually a very important thing.
Right, absolutely. And little side tangent on what you just said too. Little thing, because I did as an electrician, I did work on a building that was, made in, or it was built in like the early 1800s, and they were turning it into their historical society place, or headquarters or whatever for the town, and certain aspects of it had, in order to maintain that historical landmark status, had to be recreated in historical accuracy. Electrical, not so much because of safety concerns. Like, we didn't go and run knob and tube or nothing. But like a lot of the carpenters, they had to use, some pretty wild and out there techniques. The plaster and lath, they used like the horsehair plaster. The trim carpenters, they used like it was insane. Like, and that's a requirement, like you said, to maintain that level of historical accuracy, to maintain a landmark status. So, hey Dwayne, hey Aimless. Sorry, I'm Ben, Bloobs. But yeah, and that goes, like for Wrought, it's a historical thing. You don't see wrought anymore, unless it's required for, like Speargrass said. And back more to the metallurgical side of it. Sorry, Sully, I kind of broke off on tangents.
Quite all right.
Excuse me. But the metallurgical side of it, I believe it was Robert who mentioned, or Robert or Trail Dust or somebody mentioned the different grades. Now, you got like refined wrought would be something, it's the same material, just, okay, so you'll take, what is it, you take the pig iron and you start working it and folding it over and blasting out the impurities, right, Sully?
Yeah.
To get wrought. You keep working it, folding it, working it, hammering it, working it. Wrought is an old world term for worked. It's wrought. And how you get like refined wrought, how they would make like superior, metal with wrought iron, would be to fold it and get as many impurities out to the point where it's pretty much pure iron, and whatever carbon migration would get, come into play. And it would be just really tight grain and strong and rawr, compared to something that didn't need to be super refined, much like, handrails or fencing, where, they just work it until it would hold its shape, So, like, that's the difference when somebody says, hey, this is refined wrought versus this is, unrefined wrought. You can see that in the grain structure. And, yeah. See you, Wayne.
So, interestingly enough, of course, I'm scrolling through the Wikipedia page on wrought iron, which is freaking massive.
No kidding.
And it, on the right hand side of the page, it shows like various examples of wrought iron, and the first picture is the Eiffel freaking Tower. I'm like, holy crap, that's a lot of wrought iron, and I've been to the top of that sucker, and I mean those that stuff is not small.
Get a Sawzall. Go to the Eiffel Tower and carry your battery angle grinder. I'm taking some of this with me, damn it.
Well, I did have the foresight. I did know somebody else that had been there before, and he told me to take a Sharpie to sign the walls at the top of the Eiffel Tower. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, everybody signs the walls up in the viewing room up in the top. I was like, okay. So to be different, I took a whiteout pen. And sure enough, I got up to the top, and the whole inside of that sucker's covered in black Sharpie signatures, and I did mine in white. And apparently they repaint it. They repaint it gray every year.
Wow. Wow, that'd be a trip. I would never go up there because I'm terrified of heights. But that'd be a trip, man.
Yeah, I was there for New Year's Eve, 95, 96, and it was super, super foggy. And everybody's like, well, we're just going to go up to the first level, you know, because there's like 3 different levels, and, you know, costing slightly more for each one. It wound up being like, I think, $60 to go all the way to the top. And, and I was, of course, I had imbibed in quite a bit of wine. And I was like, the heck with that. I'm never going to be in Paris again in the rest of my life. I'm going all the way to the top just so I can say I've been to the top. You know, the 30 or so people that were with me were like, hey, that's a pretty good point.
That's a good point.
So we all went to the top.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that structure was wrought iron until today.
Yeah. Wow. Let's see. In the day, wrought iron was far more expensive than today's mild steel because of all the man hours required to produce it. I believe it. And I believe that's also why they don't produce it anymore. Well, one of the reasons. You know, all the man hour to create something that is a inferior product. Wrought iron is bloom that has been consolidated and formed into a bar. In its simplistic...
That is one version. I mean,
yeah. There's
there are lots of other versions. There's puddle iron. There's
in its most simplistic explanation, Eric, I would say that that's fairly accurate. But as Sully said, there's plenty of ways to make it. You know, you can.
There is tough iron, blend iron, best iron, marked bar iron, puddle iron, Osmond process. I mean, there are just so many different ways to make wrought that I mean, and only one of them is bloomery steel. There were lots and lots of different methods to produce it. So I mean, it's a very interesting. I mean, like I just went through the entire Wikipedia at the beginning of this, and that was so interesting. I mean, just like all kinds of stuff I did not know.
We just had a metal nerd hop in. Let me see. Depending on where people are looking for the definition of wrought iron changes how someone will speak of it. To a blacksmith, it's a type of metal. In some books, the definition is any hand-worked metal. You know, fair, yeah, exactly, deranged. Let's see. Hey, Curtis. Sam. How you doing? Big Fudge. Yeah, we're talking metal. He heard, Sully, he heard we were going to be starting a Metal of the Week, and he came in here going, what? What y'all talking?
If we get Sam on this chat, it'll be just Sully and Sam talking about it.
Let's see. let's.
Well, but you know, I mean, you know, it's got 0.02% molybdenum, right? I mean, you know.
Let's see if we can get Sully and Sam to nerd out about wrought iron.
Yeah, let's not, because I am not prepared for that exchange.
I don't know if
I am completely winging it today. So
yeah. Let me see. Hey Chaz, welcome to the Forge chat. We're all completely winging it today. Carnage Creations wrought iron or wrought from an old shoe and horse cart axle.
Curtis, I totally agree. I mean, as somebody that is fond of wrought iron, it really does grind my gears when, you know, these companies call something wrought that's not wrought, and it's like, oh, you're selling mild steel.
What you guys were saying before about how you can get wrought and look at it, and sometimes it falls apart. You know, so and that actually comes down to what the joke that Yamez just made about the chemical composition of the wrought iron. You know, some were better than others because some contained more sulfur or phosphorus, and that's important to the integrity of that wrought. You know, because wrought, and this comes from my discussions with Sam, of course, but wrought that it contains higher levels of sulfur or phosphorus, depending, and sometimes both, has a tendency to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was something I read about on there on the puddling process for producing wrought iron. It's basically it's a big puddle of molten iron, and they would sit there and stir it, constantly exposing the iron to oxygen to decarburize it, and it also prevented the iron from being exposed to the sulfur and the phosphorus from the coke and the coal, and so the puddling process for making wrought iron made a very pure wrought iron.
Which you would, yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, wrought iron of, I don't say pure, I mean wrought iron of a higher grade. You know, 'cause
Yeah, more refined.
Didn't contain the sulfur, the phosphorus, and those impurities that are imparted by the coal.
To kind of save the man hours of beating a bar of, wrought iron into a refined structure.
Well, no, they still kind of did that, but
yeah.
I mean, eventually it's a puddle of molten liquid. Eventually, it becomes solidified, and then they have to beat it into something usable. I think that process was patented in like the late 1700s, and kind of fell out of use by like the 1860s or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't have the page open anymore. That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah. All right. Great interaction here. Sam, feel free to comment. We'll read any comment you make out loud because you're the OG metal nerd. Okay. It has been said, so it will happen. Let me get my big fudge voice here. Historically speaking, historically speaking, wrought iron was only described as such to differentiate laminated or forged iron from iron produced using the puddling method, etc. In order for iron to be called wrought, it is generally accepted that it was forged in some way as opposed to cast. Huh.
Correct. Yeah, worked. It had to be. It was typically worked by hand.
So in its simplest form, I could say that. No, because it wouldn't be wrought steel then. Morning, James Jones. I was going to say, yeah, technically everything a blacksmith makes is wrought iron, but no, it's not wrought iron because. Wait a minute. Fun fact, just screwed up my whole perception. Wrought iron is not really iron. Ha ha ha. No, ha ha.
It is technically an older version of mild steel.
Hey, Michael.
Mild steel and wrought iron are essentially the same composition, at least as the way I read it.
That I did not know that. I should have thought like, but wrought alloys, wrought aluminium.
It did say on that thing that the original definition, it was any metal that was worked by hand was considered wrought iron.
Right.
Or any steel or whatever. I don't. It did say metal, but I do think that's a little bit
broad.
Well, I mean, maybe that is inaccurate. Maybe it's not. I mean, aluminum wasn't really a thing back then.
No, but I mean, if the word wrought means worked, maybe. But yeah, I'm like sitting here waiting for Sam comments so that I can.
Yeah, right. It's like.
It's almost impossible to create chemically pure iron, especially in a primitive bloomery, etc. Iron is so reactive it picks up alloy and contents like the plague. You know what? That absolutely makes sense. Because I mean,
really, the only way you can get pure iron is crystalline iron.
Yeah.
Which is that's one of those things that's like lab produced in extreme environments, kind of like crystallizing carbon.
Right. Hey, Matt. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense there, Sam, because any process using to extract the iron ore into some to melt it or do anything, adds to remove something from the chemical composition. So I absolutely yes. New show idea. Yama's quotes Sam.
See, honestly though, but for authenticity, Adam should be reading all the Sam quotes.
Absolutely. It was Sam's idea to read all of yeah. Okay. Put on your big fudge hat, your shop towel ninja hat there, and get your.
I'm gonna have to drop my voice a bit to recreate the docile tones of Sam Townsend. But so his next one is, we now have the ability to distill iron, but it's prohibitively expensive.
It's like he's in the chat with us.
I can't do a good Sam. He just have that beautiful voice. I just can't recreate.
Oh,
But I can give you the accent anyway.
that's what we need. I can't. I used to be able to do accents, but I took an arrow to the knee.
So your sweet roll is all right.
Ben Toombs is propositioning you, Adam.
I guess Ben really enjoyed those sweet low tones.
Yeah. No, I think that was actually within the 15 seconds, so I don't think you heard that yet. He was just, oh, while you're here, want to grab some coffee, Adam?
How you doing, man?
How you doing?
Here we go. Here's a big one for you. Sam's just sitting there. Okay. If you're not going to read it, I'm going to read it because that's important.
I'll get it. Okay, it just popped up. So raw iron, as we use it, is regularly laminated with variations in the carbon, sulfur, phosphorus, etc., which is why we get the pretty patterns. Of course, that also includes silica and slag impurities.
I like slag impurities. Or impure slags.
The impurities is what makes it beautiful.
Yeah.
Yep. So reading, I'm also doing a bit of fast research whilst we're talking about this comment, and so I'm actually on the Britannica.
My research team, everybody.
Encyclopedia website. So in Europe, it was found that raw iron could be produced indirectly from cast iron made in blast furnaces. One of the most widely used in such indirect methods, called the puddling process, was developed by Henry Court in 1784. It involved melting cast iron in a hollowed earth and then agitating it with a bar so that the carbon in the cast metal was removed. Raw iron typically having less than 1%, 1.01% or 0.1% carbon, whereas cast generally has 2.1 to 4% carbon. So the carbon was removed by the oxidating gases in the furnace. The portion of the solid decarburized iron progressively increased, and the resulting thick mixture of metal and slag was then run through a squeezer, which removed most of the excess slag and formed a rough cylinder for consequent rolling into a more finished product.
Yes.
So that was generally the mass production method after the end of the 1700s into the 1800s.
In the about the end of wrought iron production, where blast furnaces made it possible to make steel at a much cheaper rate. The UK alone was producing wrought iron at the neighborhood of 400 million pounds per year. That is a lot of freaking wrought iron, man. That was just in the UK, and I mean, it's like, where is all that stuff now?
I had to put the question mark above because all that was lost. Yeah.
Puddled iron was close to homogeneous. It was also famous for being really brittle, as it regularly took up sulfur and phosphorus, being liquid for so long.
Right. Just a good old information exchange. That's what we're here for. If I may sidestep for a brief moment to, kind of say this is awesome. Like, Sully, I love the idea of doing a Metal of the Week, and this soft launch is going great. We're all here to help, and in those in the chat, I really like that if you guys have questions about what we're talking about, or in general, bring them up. You know, if we don't get to
And
them
if
today,
if you got something to add, by all means, you know.
absolutely.
I mean, like if there's something that we haven't mentioned, bring it up.
Yeah, like Sam heard we were discussing metal and jumped in here to correct us.
Right.
And
Taking us to school.
and yeah, this show isn't us talking at you; it's us talking with you. So, yeah.
So to extend on this conversation, now that we've discussed the metallurgy and everything of Wrought, how about we discuss some of the places where in your country or where in your local residence where you might find wrought iron? Because of course we all know wagon wheels and stuff like that, but from there, you know, wrought iron is particularly for someone like me rather challenging to find. So you know, where would you find wrought iron in your area? And just to follow on from Sam Townsend, because he did, funnily enough, the change from using charcoal in the early medieval period to mine coal in the Industrial Revolution actually decreased the quality of the mass-produced iron.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, I'll go first on the wrought iron thing. See, so I live in the you know, well, obviously the middle of Texas, and the colonization or westward happened so late in that kind of time frame. There's very little wrought over that made it this way. I mean, it's
Right.
like, you know, about the only place you could really find it is old wagon wheel rings and hubs. That's like it. And around, I mean, we don't have really like when I go back east, there's all these historical buildings that are hundreds of years old. We don't do that out here. When a building is like 50 years old, they knock it down and build a new one. I mean, old buildings are, you know, it's like it costs more to renovate them than it does to just knock them down and start from scratch. I mean, I'm not talking about like old courthouses and stuff like that. That stuff sticks around, but everything else is just constantly being rebuilt. So we don't get like, for me to get wrought iron, I have to go to. I only ever get wrought iron at Quad State. I mean, like I go to Ohio to find wrought iron.
Yeah. For me, it's pretty much the same. I not the, you know, around here. I'm sure I can find a lot of wrought iron, but I don't have a lot of connections, and I either get gifted it or pick it up at Quad State. But like, I live in a very historical area, like Settlers Landing, you know, First Landing State Park, where, you know, and everything is just up the road. You know, so a lot of, you know, history in this area, and it's like, I'm sure if I were to dig down, not literally, well, maybe literally, but, you know, dig into the area, I might be able to find some old wrought, but people around here don't like to come off of anything. Y'all remember the fiasco when I was trying to get a treadmill motor? But
Right.
but yeah, like, no, you go to somebody's house or whatever, and you notice that they have a treadmill in their backyard and got a tree growing through it. Hey, you know, how much you want for that treadmill? No, I'm going to use it someday.
Sam says, until the cementation process was discovered, the smelting furnaces became larger and more indirectly heated. So on that note, so again, good old Google research. Basically, steel had largely replaced wrought iron or iron by 1890s. So it's fairly safe to say that the metals or irons, anything made of iron produced before 1890 or the 1900s year in Australia, would be fairly safe to say it's most likely to be made out of iron or raw iron. So, you know, for example, old anchors and stuff like that, we wagon wheels, we generally take that for granted. But you know, even railway spikes and railway base plates, bits of old railway bridges, anything produced, you know, 1880 and earlier, you could say with fairly good certainty would be produced from raw iron. So, you know, if you're looking for iron, you know, particularly if you can get provenance on the age of something, that might help you whittle down before you need to start grinding into it, whether it's made of steel or iron.
Right. Sorry. I read something in the chat that kind of like froze my brain for a second. I will read it.
Is that Roy saying good morning?
No, it was just above that. I said, I can pick your Yamez in a black outfit at night with a Sawzall. Talk about me like going through people's yards with a Sawzall in a black outfit? No, that's a way to get shot around here. You know.
Dark blue or dark grey, because black actually at night black makes you stick out more.
Yeah.
Ask me how I know that.
You're a cat burglar.
In theory, you mean? In theory.
Yeah, completely in theory. And Dan says, I got stupid lucky and got given about 7 kilos of iron cut from a big flywheel. My mate owns, he found it on a farm, and the whole thing weighs about 150 kilos.
Good morning, Roy. Nice.
Morning, Roy.
Those of you that don't metric, that's about 20 pounds.
Actually, it's about 300 pounds.
7 kilos is not 300 pounds.
No, 100. I thought you were talking about the last measurement, 150.
Oh, yeah.
It's about 2.2 pounds a kilo. So, yeah, about 17 is probably about 7 kilos is probably about, between 14 and probably over 14, but less than that, it's probably 18 pounds.
Numbers.
I was just being in a general, about,
Yeah.
I didn't sit down and do the math. I just estimated.
Well, I'm used to doing the math because of all you mob in America when we're talking about kilos. You're like, how much is that in freedom units? So it's like, hang on, quick mental math to get the rough amount.
Numbers.
And so, Sam says, identifying wrought can be difficult. The rough, coarse stuff can be scored and snapped to see the grain. Refined wrought needs to be polished and etched.
Yes. Wait. Shut up, Ben. I'm sorry. I'm over here feeling, like you guys are all talking numbers and maths and science and stuff, and I'm like, I'm the comic relief. So I created a little I understand that they're words, but what little icon for myself. So yes.
Speaking of sources of iron, so for those of us in Australia, besides again wagon wheels and stuff like that, which we all know about, old bridges, demolished bridges and stuff like that, particularly ones that were built pre-1880s. So here in the Northern Territory, we had the Darwin to Pine Creek Railway, which was used until the 1980s and has been now almost completely replaced by the Afghan or the GAN. A lot of the bridges in that and a lot of the railway spikes and all that were wrought iron because it was built pre-1890 when steel production became major. It's also the reason why it also was used in World War One to transport a lot of troops and stuff like that, which is why it wasn't demolished and all the steel used out of it in the Northern Territory. So that's a source of a form of wrought iron here for me. So anyone else in Australia that has access to old bridges and stuff like that has been demolished. See if you can get the age of the provenance and age of the metals that come from those bridges, and that might be an interesting place for you to get wrought from.
And by no means does that mean go out underneath that bridge in the middle of the night with a Sawzall.
Correct. So if I get this right, if you think that a railway spike is steel, it could be wrought iron. Just polish and etch.
Honestly, if it's wrought, I think you're going to be able to tell straight away because it's going to be old enough that it's going to have a corrosion pattern that is
distinctly
that really
wrought.
Shows the grain. Because I would think you could still etch it, but
I've got a picture somewhere. I have no idea where. I got like 8 folders of pictures and all on my phone and other phone. I got a picture somewhere of an old chain. It was like a artistic picture, not like somebody going, "Hey, is this wrought?" and it's just an old chain that they had in their garden, and they took a close-up of the chain link, and you could see the lichen growing on it. It was real cool, but it looked like wood grain, the pure look of the wrought iron. And it's like, so yeah, something that old, if in a position to rust and corrode, should show its grain structure. I feel like we chased off Roy. Roy goes, oh.
Hey, I got a question there, Adam. Do you know if there was any significant wrought production in Australia?
I don't actually know. I do know we had significant steel production up until about the mid '90s, but I'm not 100% sure about if we had wrought production. I would say off the top of my head, without googling it, Australia would have had some form of wrought production, considering our isolation from the rest of the world for a good 100 odd years. Because it took so long to get anywhere in ships, average shipping time from Europe or even the Americas to Australia was generally 2 to 3 months. So as Sam just said, we had a few foundries, but nothing major. So large scale iron production probably wasn't it, but we did have some.
So
I mean, even here in Darwin, where I am, the first blacksmith shop was actually situated on a hill that doesn't exist anymore, but that was in the 1870s, and yeah, it's we had blacksmithing. Most major places had blacksmithing. Most traces of apart from the obvious, like the blacksmith shops in Sydney and stuff like that. Most of the major blacksmithing areas around Australia, to my research, have actually near on completely disappeared. Like there's a remnant of a wheelwright's pit in Katherine, and that's pretty much the only reference to blacksmithing in the entire Northern Territory.
yeah, I just searched, did Australia have wrought iron producers, and pretty much what he said came up. I was like, nothing major, won't pop up in the top searches, but
Or was and still is shipped overseas for refining. Most of our iron was refined in the British Indies.
Trying to catch up here on the chat. That's a good question of wagon wheels. One thing I've heard about wagon wheels is just because you see a lot of, around here at least, a lot of like wagon wheel decorations, and it is commonly thought that all wagon wheels are wrought iron. That's not inherently true, because the wagon wheel, the metal part of the wagon wheel, is actually called the tire, and they were changed fairly regularly. Okay, so as the steel came and kind of replaced wrought iron, those wagon wheels were still in use. They changed their tires to not wrought iron, basically a mild steel, and so.
But where you get the wrought is from the hub.
Yes, because that isn't changed as frequently.
Now, and the only exception to that is like in decorative reproduction pieces that could have been made like in the 40s and whatnot. That,
yes.
Were just made to be a yard decoration or something like that. It looks like at this point in time, it looks like it's an antique wagon wheel, because it looks the same as one that would have been produced back in the day, because the wood's all rotted up and stuff. But if it's a reproduction unit, it could look authentic, and you wouldn't know unless you etched it.
Unless you cut it up and etched it. So when buying wagon tires, wagon wheel tires and hubs and stuff, don't automatically assume it's wrought. There's a, not to put anything down or anybody, there's a shop, a thrift shop over in South Mills, and they have, I think, a collection of wagon wheels and tires and such that they are claiming is wrought. I took a look at them, and they're not wrought. They are reproductions, and I told them that, and they want like, $300 for them. Oh yeah, I know that they don't make wrought anymore, so I know these are rare. It's like, these are not. It's like you're trying to profit off of people's ignorance there.
Morning, Anson.
Uh-oh, Anson's in the house.
Yeah, I mean, because I had one of my mother-in-laws had a couple of wagon wheel hubs sitting on her porch, and they've been there for years and years and years, and I was looking at them one day, and she's like, you can have those, and so I was like, sweet, I took them home and knocked the wood off of the because it's got two metal bands around each end, or one metal band around each end, and then it's got a metal sleeve down the middle of it. And so I took the bands and chopped them up into like little strips and went to forge weld it all together, and nope, they were mild steel.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so. I mean, and they did. They looked like 1800s wagon wheel hubs, but they were mild steel components.
Yeah. I mean, again, it goes back to that. A good way to tell is something that weathered. If it is real wrought, you can look at it and see the grain. Like, scrape a bit of the rust away and it'll flake like wrought grain. And if it doesn't, if you're looking at it and it's like, this just looks like rusty mild steel, chances are it's mild steel.
Yeah.
Unless the person can provide documented proof, which, how could you? Roy had a nice chunk of it for his axe project last night. Did Roy go live last night? What day is it? Am I lost? I thought he went live on Friday, because I remember, I remember looking up and being, I zonked out Friday night, and I looked up and I saw that I missed his stream, and I'm like, dang it, a day that I wasn't in my shop on a Friday, I was looking forward to laying on my couch and watching him, watching him forge stuff and everything, and I completely freaking missed it. And
yeah, I slept through it because I went to bed at noon, and my night shift canceled right before I went to bed. So I went to bed at noon and woke up at 9 a.m. on Saturday, and I was like, whoop, boy.
Yeah. The wagon wheels I got stated they were wrought are not. Oh, those ones that you had outside your shop? I tend to find most of my wrought iron in barns, old farm equipment, tools, and chains. Most of the time I have to dig in the dirt to find pieces. There you go. Get a metal detector. The museum where my shop is has many decaying wagons. Bulk of axles are wood. The ends don't know yet. Haven't tried working any of them. Yeah, go into a museum and take their stuff. Oh.
Wagon wheels are a great money thing. It's like a lottery.
Oh. All right.
Thomas would make a good point, that you really need to, when it comes to a wagon wheel, you really need to look at it closely to tell whether the wrought iron is the physical tire or the whole thing. Because the railroad museum where I work out, our tires are made of very heavy wood, and the physical tire that's on the wrapped around our floor, that is the actual metal. The rest of it's solid wood.
Mm-hmm. You have to, when buying something, don't go on the seller's word, because the seller wants to sell it. And if he can get you get a premium price for it by telling you it's one thing when it's not, and how are you going to prove it? You have to have that knowledge going into buying something like that. Hey, Sam, that's a question for Sully. Sully is the facilitator and prime research head of developmental research for the Metal of the Week project. So
what are we?
he says,
I had
he goes, so is next week's metal sheer steel? One of my favorites. So
I have no. Well, actually, no. I mean, like I could put that in the rotation though.
Okay.
I did start working on a metal for next week already, but I got so busy with work. I didn't have time to get my ducks in a row, and that's why we kind of did the soft launch on wrought iron. Is just because I started my research and started making notes, and then life happened, and so in the pre-show I asked Yamez, I was like, man, I did not get a chance to get this segment written up. Should we just wait till next week or do it, or what? And he says like, no, let's do wrought iron. I was like, all right, I don't know how that's gonna go, but
it went very well. I mean, I think today's show went excellent. And what Sam just asked, along with Sulbert's reply, gave me a brilliant idea. Okay, instead of having everybody email Sully and bombard him with that, I am going to, right here live in the community projects. No. Alright, so Rob Huff might hate me for this, but Metal of the Week. Alright. Created a channel here called Metal of the Week. Gonna put it I'll leave it there. Okay, this is where we can go and add suggestions, requests, and Sully, something neat would be if in your research, all your citations, where you find the information, or if you actually, because I don't know how you plan on doing it, if you're writing up a blurb, or copy pasting a blurb of information.
Well, what the way I'm gonna prepare is I'm gonna take my legal pad and I'm gonna go through and if I see something that needs to be quoted word for word, I'll write that down. But for the most part, I'm just gonna kind of do an outline with bullet points, and then we can just talk organically about those bullet points. And then but anything that is like super important, like things like on some particular steels that have an exact chemical makeup, I can write down the points of that chemical makeup that make it unique, or and things like that. So I mean, it's what I'm just going to kind of do an outline thing with idea with that's my plan. Just so I can go down the list and we can talk about the different things on it. That's the idea.
Absolutely. But yeah, utilize the Metal of the Week channel to offer suggestions. And it gives us it takes a little bit of the onus off of Sully to come up with I got, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do this, blah, blah, blah. It kind of helps out, and he can put together a list of things to look into. And
right. I mean, because instead of me just having to come up with the particular alloy each week and just go with it. I mean, what do you want me to talk about? I mean, like if you've got a favorite steel that not many people talk about, or you want to know something about it. I mean, granted, if you want to know about it, I mean, obviously you can just Google it. But I mean, as far as being a group discussion topic, I mean, that's kind of the point.
Does that help you, Sully?
No, for sure.
For sure. Yeah,
make
absolutely.
Crazy. I mean, like I said, I'm already half done with next week's metal, and so I'm going to go with that one. And then after that, I mean, throw some shear steel in there.
Yeah, and get it all figured out.
Because honestly, I have no idea what that is, no clue, and I'm not going to Google it right now. I'm going to wait and surprise myself.
Cool. Yeah, you know, and that's kind of the purpose of the Metal of the Week, is like you may hear about something that you've never heard before, you know, or information about something that you've heard of but never really thought about because it may not apply to you, you know, like, yeah. I hope that a lot of the information that we talked about Wrought for today hopefully kind of made people go, oh, like I know that, who was it, just John Brunel just mentioned, there's something that several people probably don't know. The spreader bar in the center of a chain link was cast iron, you know. I don't know. I've heard of that. Huh?
I was going to say, generally a yoke, like a particularly steel yokes that we used on Bullocky. I'm not sure if you guys have Bullocky teams in the US, but the metal yokes that we use for Bullocky teams, and you can generally find them on cattle stations or in here in Australia. They were actually wrought because they needed to be extra strong because of the sheer amount of forces that were used on them. Same as drag lines that pulled trees and stuff.
Right. Yeah, Adam. During the late 1700s and 1800s, yokes was here used in the United States. Mainly was used by oxen, and believe it or not, horse teams had the yokes on them when it came to a logging operation. So, yeah, it has been used, just not in the most recent times.
Himself up to as a sacrifice to be a guest on Metal Talk when you decide to have him. And Sam also just said, can confirm that too. Tried to forge a spreader from chain and ended up with the powder.
Yeah. Deranged brought up a good question for Sully. What about red-headed stepchild steels? Is there any plans on talking about certain junk steels?
Oh, I mean,
for sure.
I mean, like my plan is, I mean, like I'm not even just going to limit it to steel. I mean, since this is basically blacksmithing, I'm gonna kind of keep it to any metal that is forgeable. Like, I mean, this is going to be a long-term weekly segment, which I had anticipated this being like a 15-minute segment. In the whole, you know, like a quarter of the show, but today turned out to be the whole darn show. But I was thinking even doing like silica bronze, different alloys of titanium, different alloys of aluminum, and their various properties, and any other metals that might be forgeable. Yeah, I'm gonna go through different not all, I mean, because there are 1,000 steel alloys, but I'm gonna go through different steel alloys and then other, and that's why it's metal of the week and not steel of the week, is because I'm gonna throw in there other stuff that's not typically thought of all that often.
Yeah, like aluminium.
You know I was just thinking a few minutes ago, like, I just found fascinating how gun iron was being used for, basically for around 250 years, going right up to the 1900s, and how somehow off of that, we swapped from gun iron to using steel and other materials for producing armament for the Navy. I just find that fascinating. It's something to consider about how long we've been using gun iron as our primary use for cannons until the time a better material has been developed.
I want to make a cannon.
You know what? That reminds me. When I was a kid, there was an old place called Western Iron Works that had a foundry, maybe about a quarter mile through the woods from a friend of mine's house, and I mean it had been closed down since the 50s or whatever. Well, I mean, just walking around it, I mean, it was abandoned and all that, and so I mean, I remember picking up like the cast iron irons, you know, that you would heat up on a stove for ironing your clothes. You know, I picked up several of those and some like cast iron pets and stuff like that, and on the they had like a basement that was it was underneath the first floor, but it was because it was kind of on a hillside. It was open, accessible from ground level, and there was a stack of cannons in there that was probably 20 feet deep and 10 feet wide and 3 feet tall, and they're all just lined up, just stacked on top of each other. And I mean, they had about a 2.5-inch bore, and they had the little pegs on the sides and everything for the wheels. I mean, just the neatest thing. And I mean, I was like 16 at the time, and I couldn't even budge one, and I was like, man, one of these days I got to figure out how to get a cannon out of here. And then when I was 18, somebody lit the place on fire. It burned to the ground. And they just covered it all up with a bulldozer.
Well, you know where it is.
Well, not really. It's all like reclamated. I mean, like there's nothing left. It's all just like woods now. And I mean, and honestly, I mean, yeah, that's been. I have no idea where that building used to be.
Get a shovel.
Yeah, right.
just start digging. There's cannons in them hills.
Well, I mean, I do have a Fisher M-scope 2-box metal detector that's good for. Goes down to like 22 feet, but doesn't detect anything lighter than about a pound. So I mean, like a regular metal detector hits everything. This one here only hits big stuff.
Yeah, I'd say cannons are pretty big stuff.
Yeah, and that's the downside of a Fisher M-scope is, it doesn't differentiate metal. I mean, you could be walking over a buried car and it's going to go off the same as if you walked over a buried Spanish treasure with a mule load of silver in it.
Yeah. Ow.
Really? Considering this is metal of the week, and you're saying any metal that can be smithed, that means at some stage you've got to include gold and silver and tin and copper.
Sure.
That's correct.
Well.
No, I mean that's seriously all. I mean, anything that does not crumble or liquefy when heated, like say, I mean, obviously mercury and
gallium.
Is it bismuth?
Bismuth.
Gallium. Mercury and gallium obviously are not forgeable, but.
I mean,
and there are some others, but I mean anything really that you can heat and beat, or even work cold, any malleable ductile metal, is eventually going to make it into the list.
Yeah, this is and we're going to start closing it out here soon, but just to kind of touch on what he had said a little bit ago. This is intended to be just a segment, not full show, thing.
You're right.
Wrought iron and is such a broad. That's why I wanted to bring it up today. Is because it's such a broad topic and it's such a interesting, relatable metal for us. However, that being said, we're not going to require Sully to come up with an hour's worth of material. But conversationally wise, once we bust into the metal of the week topic, I mean, if that ends up taking up the rest of the show through conversation, and as you guys know, the Sunday morning gatherings are a very fluid and organic show. If we keep some metals, we'll get to the point where metal of the week is freaking ADCRV. Here's the chemical composition of ADCRV. Here's what it's used for.
And I mean, there are so many of those. I mean, like ADCR, I know what it is, but I have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
So
but
I'm gonna learn right along with anybody else.
My point being is there may be steels that we talk about that hype everybody up. Like, yeah, let's talk about this for 7 hours. And there may be steels where it's like, yep, here's just some information on a steel. So it'll be hit or miss. Yeah.
Well, and Anson and Sam to comment on that. I do a lot of work with copper-coated ground rods, and I quickly learned to whack that ground rod on the far side of the anvil to swing the molten copper off before you hit it with a hammer, because it only took once of pulling it out and not realizing the copper was molten, and smacking it with a hammer, and that stuff went everywhere. Luckily, I was wearing an apron at the time, and it did not burn me. But I mean, I was kind of taken aback and went, "Oh, maybe that's a bad idea."
Yeah. So,
I don't do short steel rants, huh?
Sam, you are always welcome on the show. You know.
What we're probably gonna do is we're gonna run the Medal of the Week as a second segment. And I what I think we'll do is we're gonna do intros and general discussion for about the first 20 minutes. Then we'll get into the Medal of the Week. And if that winds up being a 15-minute segment, a 10-minute segment, or if it takes the rest of the show, we've got that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that way, if we bring it up right away, you know, I mean, then it might just hog up the entire day or the entire stream. So yeah, we'll get into it at about 10:20ish. I think is a good time.
Yeah.
And then we'll do Medal of the Week and then organically see how long it goes. and if it becomes problematic, we might actually kind of time it down and hard stop the segment at a certain point if it gets to the point where that's all we're doing from here on out is Medal of the Week for the last 40 minutes of the show. Maybe we can do a hard out at 20 minutes or something like that. I don't know. But it's an idea in progress. You know, I thought this would be fun to do.
And, I love it. I love it. You know, it goes along with a bit of structure and eventually maybe we'll get to Tool of the Week and then I don't know, maybe.
Hey, maybe even someday we'll have YouTuber of the Week, huh?
Yeah.
Today we're talking about Roy from Christ-Centered Ironworks, and he did this wrong and he did that wrong and he doesn't know what he's talking about when he talks about this.
I mean, you could that's like a month-long segment right there going on about Roy and it's like, dang it, Roy, why don't you show your blacksmithing finishes in every single video? Exactly, Sam. That was the joke.
You're right.
That was the joke there. No, we ain't trying to copy nobody. We're.
Ironically, Sam, I actually brought that up earlier in the week when we were discussing this. I was like, man, I do not want this to turn into ripping off the Forge cast.
No, and I had kind of an explanation for that too. It's like, there's really three or four major topics with blacksmithing. I'm talking major broad topics. You got tools, materials, safety and technique, and if you have a show of any kind about blacksmithing, you're going to touch on any one of those four, if not all four of those topics. So, yeah, it's thanks for sharing. Very interesting topic. My first encounter with Wrought was a disaster, but now I'd like to give it another try. Nothing new under the sun. Yep. And Roy got mad and he was leaving. He goes, no, fine. No, just I was waiting for no, Sam.
I'm sure Roy knows I was just busting his chops there.
But Sam, and as everybody knows, Forgecast, Sam and Alex's podcast is awesome and well worth a listen. I've been interviewed on it. Roy's been interviewed on it. A lot of people have been interviewed on it, and they are. I hesitate to say partners because there's no official partnership, but like they're part of the community. They're right there with us, So there's no competition on our end. We're not aiming to take over their show and knock them out of the water. It's I'll reference them, and I'm sure they reference me all the time. I'm sure they've got like a whole segment of what's Yamez up to. No, they don't. I'm not that important. But nah, I just personally wish I had more time in the day, to listen. Back when I was doing a lot of new construction, I'd put on the Island Metal Minute. I used to put Forgecast on in my headphones and work, but I'm not really in a position to wear headphones at work anymore, so I can't do that anymore. And my speakers in my shop aren't good enough to hear. It's basically music to tune, I can't hear, words and stuff in my shop. Anyway, though, with all of that, I'd like to give a big round of applause to Sully for coming up with the idea of Metal of the Week. And
thank you.
And thank you all for participating. I think this was a very good show, and yeah. So while I'm driving, Eric, I actually, in the work truck, on the way to the jobs, me and Jeannie are discussing plans for the job, so I can't really, when I'm at work, I'm at work. But with that, guys, I need to fill the bathtub with some salt water and get my muscles back under control.
Yep, and I gotta go take care of business in town. So yay!
You broke up at the worst possible little things. It's like, I've got to go take. And then,
yeah, I've got to go take care of business in town.
Yeah, but it's I got to go take business town. And it was like, what are you taking?
Right? You're doing what with Sam Towns?
All right, guys. Thank you all. Thank you guys for the fun, and thank you, J-Rod. Thank you, Speargrass. Thank you, Shamrock. And
hey, and I want to thank everybody for participating and making it a quite a great soft launch of a segment. So
yeah, yep. Thank you, David. Thank you, Deranged. Thank you. I'm not gonna say thank you, Ben Toombs. Thank you, everybody. Big hugs. I will catch you guys all Wednesday for Forging with Yamez at 6 p.m. Eastern. And I'm going to forge a gigantic hammer that I can use to smush Ben. No. It's going to be a hammer that's twice his size, so I'm going for about 3 pounds. All right, guys.
Last I was Mjolnir.
Or what is that, 6 kilograms? All right, guys. All right. I'm lost. Where's my... Okay, there it is. I need a third monitor. All right, guys. Peace. And we're clear.